I genuinely don't know what else you could call what happened to Alex Peretti and Renee Good anything other than an execution, really. I've always, been like a leftist, definitely not as good of one as I can be, definitely not one to look up to in that sense, I'd say, but, nonetheless. And, being one, the idea of revolution or an absurd amount of reform, like having to take part for anything really to happen, is an inherent part of it, one I could obviously agree with without really needing to take the time to think about the vast amount of morally problematic events necessary for that to work. While I kept on learning and trying to find possible solutions for problems that were out there. But, as an increasing number of our cities are being militarily occupied, and our neighbors are literally being gunned down in the street by masked government agents, it has forced me to sort of, I don't know, mentally prepare for what is to come. And, the idea of peaceful protests and togetherness is a moral high ground that is almost universally agreed upon, I'd say. But Renee Good and Alex Pretti have sort of called that into question, and what the future can or will hold if that path is followed. Obviously, peace is exactly what anyone wants, but the price for reform is paid one way or another, I'd say. And while MAGA has taken a dip in support, it is definitely anything but all of them, even after the executions. And they have shown themselves to be perfectly okay standing behind a man after the unjust killing of multiple people, giving, I'd say, no reason to believe that support would end after the next one, or the next one, or the next one. I don't know what atrocities are necessary for people who willfully exist under a boot need to happen for them to understand reality, but the only future I see where that's possible not only involves many more women and men getting killed, but our most fragile populations beaten or murdered as well. John Brown has had an increasing presence on my feed as these atrocities continue, and I can't help but think about his idea that slave owners must have been possessed by demons in order to commit the crimes they were committing against slaves. And I watched a mother get shot 3 times in the face, and an ICU nurse get attacked by multiple men, pepper sprayed, beaten into the ground, and then fucking mag dumped in the back. And I can't help but think these horrific people are anything but human, honestly. We already, in the first year, have bodies, blinded protesters, tear-gassed babies, businesses raided, and people disappearing to ICE facilities, among many, many more things. And those are only the things that we have recorded. They're willing to execute people in our streets. I would think it's safe to say that disgusting activities don't stop when the doors to their facilities close. Like I said, I've always been on the left. Probably more than a lot of the people I've ever been around. Actually, definitely a lot more than the people I've ever been around. But I don't want the complete and utter destruction of the country I love and people I love even more, like most people would like to believe about leftists. Even though that's not even remotely true, honestly. There's some, but not a lot. I will not celebrate the streets of America running red with our blood, but genuinely, what can we do as the bodies continue to grow higher and higher? How high does the pile of bodies the government leaves in its wake have to be for us to force justice, Who else needs to die for everyone to feel what many, many already do? Your mom, your dad, brother, sister. Our president has said I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters. And I'd say it's been proven to be pretty correct, but the question is now, how many can he shoot before he loses them? because the tally's growing with absolutely zero reason to believe it will stop there. And every single fucking time this has happened, the executive office has brandished it as one of their proudest moments, like a goddamn poacher showing off their new elephant tusk. At this point, I genuinely do not understand how anyone is expected to live a semi-normal life knowing what is going on in cities. I find myself just like existing angry at this point, and I don't think a lot of you are too different. I go to class and I sit there ruminating and boiling with anger about the people I used to know posting on their social media talking about some don't bring a fucking gun to a protest if you don't want to get shot. And I just wonder where anyone's critical thinking skills went. You know, I make videos, I stream, I try to play video games with my friends, and I've just found myself sitting there and like getting more and more irritated with myself as I get more sick of like trying to act like things are very obviously not falling apart. I don't understand how like when does the facade fall for everyone? I don't get it. These were completely innocent people who are now permanently gone because we have fucking government-funded gun-toting buffoons led by an oddly shaped, ill-colored, forward-leaning, small-dicked pedophile that are all playing fucking cops and robbers, except every single one of you is the robber. Now, I have hated Trump and Trump supporters for a good while, but I have been able to somewhat talk to them and humanize them on some level, even if it was minute. And I constantly see left-leaning people have to handhold and coddle a Trump supporter through any level of a conversation about anything. And when I have failed to make them understand when I did it, I've tried to, I don't know, internally explain their way of thinking away as a lack of education or being a victim of their environment, ultimately trying to make myself feel better for being the same species as them, while knowing ultimately their founding principle is and always has been hatred. I understand that education is a luxury many cannot afford, but I'd like to think that rational thinking is something given to us by nature, and I've tended to think that Trump supporters have skipped that step on the evolutionary line. It has genuinely always been fuck Trump or anything having to do with him, and I've tried to force myself into this togetherness type of thinking, but from the bottom of my fucking heart, you guys are less than human and deserve every evil of the world at your fucking doorstep. You're just so fucking dumb. Oh my god. You have proven yourself time and time again to be a useless fucking addition to society that only increases as time goes on. Because authoritarianism isn't knocking on our door anymore. The door's wide fucking open, and we just walk down the stairs in our goddamn underwear and robe to the fucking Gestapo. And nobody should ever forget the dumb fucks who open their mouth to support this, or the people who still attempt to maintain their centrality, because news flash, there isn't a center between murdering people in the streets and having a successful society. I don't. Come on, guys. Let's get with the program at this point, alright? Let's try to see it through, you know? I don't understand how the people who have championed themselves against DEI expect from me to diversify my worldview and include them as anyone who I would take the time to listen to the opinion of, when they can't even recognize what authoritarian rule looks like and when a fucking con man is going to con you. You goddamn idiots who sit there on your podcasts and say, I never voted for this. I don't know how to tell you this. There was a playbook, and everyone knew he was going to follow it, except you, dumb fucks, with the IQ of a walnut. Oh, I just wanted smaller taxes. Well, now your money's in the face of a mother and the back of the head of a nurse. How are we doing now? I think we need to change the rhetoric we use when discussing these things. I see too many people doing what they do with the word rape or killed on the internet and making it easier to read by calling it grape or unalive. But instead, we're calling ICE agents bullies, which, it's not wrong by any means. I think we need to call them what they are. They are masked men murdering us. We need to stop attempting to sanitize the filth and start dealing with the trash. I think it's time to pay attention to the actual problem. We have we have absolutely zero reason to believe you or me or anyone you've ever come across could be next because they just show kindness. The executions have been used to stoke fear in people, and the only way to dodge the inevitable bullet of authoritarianism is to lie your head down and lick the boot. And I don't know about you. I'm not exactly one that looks forward to that. Alex Pretti was attempting to help a woman up who was pushed to the ground, and Renee Good's last words to the ICE agent were, "It's okay. I'm not mad at you." And both now have a seat at their dining table that will never be filled again. And I'd like to say this is a new thing, but violence enacted upon the American people is not even remotely a new phenomenon and has been a constant fucking conversation way before fuck asses decided to put on an Alibaba face mask and militarize our streets. This problem is not new, and while I ultimately think the more people engage to, combat an oppressive regime is a good thing, it's kind of saddening to see it took until the perfect victims died before the masses began to start piecing things together. But I don't really know what else I would expect in the future when everyone looks down on this time of the US as one of the most shameful times in history. I will relish in the fact that every single one of your graves will be covered in the beer-filled piss of a drunk college student.